listen for hours and hours. I'm just a kid again, doing what I did again, singing the song. When the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing. When the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing. When the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing along.
Yeah. Oh, Chris, you are. I'll tell you what, guys. I'm going to sack Chris. I'm going to do the banners. I'm going to do the intro, and he messes up 2 weeks in a row. Chris,
sausage fingers.
Well, this is why we've got the guests on, because then we can replace you. But anyhow, guys, welcome to the 2022 Red Robin Podcast Fans Forum with me, Joe Appleyard, Chris Johnson, and we have got special guests on the Fans Forum, Mike Carter from 𝐂𝐾𝐲, Craig Escott, and we are hoping to get Mark Lever on eventually. Mark's joining us now. Perfect timing. He's a little bit late, but more like him. How are you doing, buddy? Can you hear us? Mark, can you hear us, buddy, before we start? Not yet. We will get him there, guys. This is the beauty of doing it with more than me and Chris. Of course, we are sponsored by 360 Chartered Accountants and Budget Tyres. Remember to share on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. We are live tonight and ask as many questions as we want. We've got plenty of time. But lads, Chris, I'll come to you first. This is a first for us. Obviously, we're going to have some tweaks. We're going to have some issues because we've got another 3 mouths to speak and hear their opinions. But I think this is something we've wanted to do for a while, isn't it? And we want to get the fans' opinions. We are fans. We want the fans to interact with us. And I think doing stuff like this is probably something that we're going to do more often.
Yeah, that's it, mate. And we want representation from across the board, don't we? Because, you know, sometimes we get sick of listening to ourselves. So it's good to get other people's views because we're not always right. We want people to say what they think, you know, and that's the beauty of sport. That's the beauty of watching 𝐂𝐿 Rovers, that we all have our thoughts and opinions. So the more that we can tell people's story and what people are thinking, the better, because we're all passionate about the club, we're all passionate about the game, and this is why we set up the podcast to give everybody an opportunity to talk about 𝐂𝐿 Rovers.
Yeah, and we'll go to all you guys now so the people and the listeners can get to know you three a little bit more as well. Mike, obviously, we'll come to you. You've been on the podcast before. Most people know you from 𝐂𝐿. How are you doing, buddy? Exciting for the season to start, and obviously tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing with 𝐂𝐿 and being in Craven Street and how the fans can interact with you on match day.
Yeah, definitely. Really, really excited for the season to get started again. There's always that gap period, isn't there, from the end of the season leading into the start of the next one. Pre-season must be the longest pre-season in any sport around when you look at when it starts to obviously when it finishes. So it's kind of the anticipation's always building, and I'm really excited for the season to start. Yeah, I'm going to be on Craven Street with the Heritage van with Alex from the Community Trust. We're going to be working alongside the club with an exhibition of shirts and also other memorabilia from Rovers Heritage. We have the Heritage van there as well. So if anybody would like to have a chat about shirts or even just sort of reminisce about old times, it's really good for people to come down and have a chat with us before, during or after the game.
Yeah, perfect. Definitely check Mike out, obviously, and listen to the podcast we did with him. It was about 5-6 months ago now, wasn't it? But you've got a great collection. You're adding to it all the time. Craig, but I've wanted to get you on the show for a long, long time. Me and Chris really appreciate certain people with our fans and how many retweets and shares they do. You're up there. You always follow our stuff. Me and Chris are really appreciative of what you've done for us with getting the word out. But tell us a bit about you. Tell us your journey of being a 𝐂𝐿 fan and how you got to being a Robin in 2022 now, still going now with a new generation taking your son for the first time on Friday night as well.
Yeah, so my nan took me when I was about 9 years old. So I've been going for about 25, 26 years. Since when I first went, it was against Huddersfield on a very cold night. We got hammered. For some reason, I really enjoyed it and been going ever since. Home, I get to as many away games as I possibly can. And yeah, you're right, I take my 5-year-old now. It's going to be his first game on Friday night.
I think, Chris, that's what the club's about, isn't it? You obviously take Finn and that generation going with your parents, going with your grandparents, and then taking your children eventually, and in years to come, hopefully a long, long time away, being grandparents as well. And I think that's the fabric of 𝐂𝐿 Rovers and why we're so embedded into it. The pride of East Hull, we get called, but especially now, there's probably nothing better for you, Chris, and for you, Craig, as well, than to be able to take your kids. You've been there and done that, and now you get to share that experience with them.
Yeah, although I'm glad that first few games are scheduled on Friday night, so I don't have to take him. So it's otherwise I can't enjoy your beer when I take him. That's the only problem. But no, seriously, mate. The club is about family. It's about tradition. It's about heritage, and it's about passing on that. That love for Rovers to the next generation, isn't it? So the more people can get involved, the more people can get watching the Robins. The better the club will be in for the future.
Yeah, definitely. Mark, I want to come to you next, but it says your mic's muted and you need to connect it. So what I'll do is we'll go on to 𝐿𝐼𝐞 𝐅𝐿𝐼𝐤 and then give us a few minutes and we'll try and get you on. But you're on, we can see you. But obviously when I try to unmute your mic, it says that you can't. So there was one of us was going to have a cock up and I want to put my money on Mark. Oh, there we are. Mark, can you hear us now?
No, it's my fault, mate.
Yeah. Perfect. There you go. So you can do it. You said you was rubbish at technology earlier. How are you doing, buddy? Obviously, we used to do the old 𝐿𝐼𝐤 Radio fans forum, so we've done this before, me, you and Chris. But how are you keeping them? Tell us a bit about your journey with 𝐿𝐼𝐤 Rovers and how you started supporting the Reds. Obviously, a former footballer in your time. How did you go to the Oval Ball?
Oh, long time ago. That my old boy took me like mid-70s, and I remember one of my first games was the Floodlit Trophy, the win, obviously at Craven Park. So and then watched it till the early 80s, then started playing football really. So I missed a lot of. I was either playing for whoever, like Old Boys or whatever. So I missed quite a lot of rugby in the 80s when we was obviously very good. And then I moved into my football career, moved back here in 2006, just when Rovers got back in Super League. And just since then, really, maybe looking for a little bit of advice, do you know what I mean, when finishing football. So just bought into it, obviously past sold, go to 75% of away games, just gripped again, basically. Love it.
Yeah, so do we all, don't we, guys? So they're our guests for the 2022 podcast. So here for the next hour or so, you have me, Joe Appleyard, Chris Johnson, Mike Carter, Craig Escott and Mark Lever. Lads, we'll probably go into the biggest talking point of what's happened in the past 24 hours, which is 𝐿𝐼𝐤. Me and Chris, when we spoke last night, we didn't know where we was going to fit him into our squads, what it was going to be, but we do know that he's going to go to Dewsbury. We've had a question about it, so our thoughts on 𝐿𝐼𝐤 are going to Dewsbury. Chris, I'm a big fan of this. I would have played 𝐿𝐼𝐤, and we'll go through it and ask everyone their opinions. But I think him playing at Sheffield this weekend, the pressure's off. He's not affiliated to Dewsbury. He can go and play 40 minutes. If he feels a little bit of a niggle, he can come off. It's not a round one clash under the Sky Sports cameras, an intense encounter. I think Friday night's going to be. For me, if we can see him in the next few weeks, he might play in the reserve friendly next Friday, the derby, obviously at Craven Park as well. But for me, I think this is works for both parties because Dewsbury is struggling in the pack and he's going to have to do a lot of work and he's going to be coming up against obviously former Robin, Chris Wellham, Josh Goodsek on Saturday, Sunday. But for me, 𝐿𝐼𝐤 going to Dewsbury is a positive in my opinion.
Yeah, and it'd be great to get Mark's opinion on it. Obviously, being a pro sportsman about, it's a serious injury he's come back from. He's had a hell of a lot of time out the game and, it's going to be blood and thunder on Friday night. I'm sure when Tony Smith asked him if he'd want to play, I'm sure he'd put his hand up and say, put me in that first team straight away. But, it's going to be a long season, isn't it? And we want to make sure that we're not rushing players back too early and put him into battle too soon. So I think it makes sense. I mean, there's no guarantees that going to Dewsbury, he's not going to pick up an injury there, is there? You saw the pitch when we played there. It's a heavy pitch. So the few games that he plays there, and you look down at Championship level, the pitch is at the best. We saw that with Featherstone on Monday, didn't we? Their pitch, I mean, wasn't great. So I think it's a wise move. Get some rugby league under his belt. You never know, he might feature for Rovers reserves when we play the derby in a couple of weeks. But I think it's a smart move by Tony Smith. And to be honest, I didn't expect to see him in the starting lineup on Friday night.
No, Mark, like Chris said, obviously being a sportsman yourself, I think the main aim for him now is to get that first carry, get that first tackle, because he seems a really confident kid. I mean, following his journey on social media has been great, but until he steps out and actually has that contact against proper opponents, not just his teammates, or the strength and con man at Rovers, I think it's a really positive move, and I'm just hoping he can get his confidence back because we saw some glimpses of stardom in 2020. I thought him and Jez, especially against our opponents on Friday, Wigan, when we beat him at Headingley, one of the only wins in 2020. But I think 𝐿𝐼𝐤, it's going to be a slow and steady race to get him back into the squad. But I think doing stuff like this really helps, Mark.
I think we've probably all of us on here played sport at whatever level, and I think we've all had serious injuries. I think you've had a bad injury, Joe, obviously, didn't you? And I don't know about you other guys, but I had a serious knee injury, and I think you can do all the training, all the strength conditioning. Not that there was much strength conditioning in my day, and all that scenario, but there's nothing replicates playing, whether it be football, rugby. So I think 10.5 months out, I just think it's a really good decision to send him off. No pressure, as you say, Joe. Send him out there, and he can just enjoy himself, and hopefully he won't get an injury. But I think maybe just pull him straight back after that one game, maybe.
Yeah, Craig, I was going to say the beauty of the dual reg system is we can send Elliot for a game. I mean, Leonard's put how many is a few games. It all depends on Elliot's progress. I imagine Tony Smith's going to be keeping tabs on him. I know James O'Brien, the Hull KR reporter from Hull Daily Mail, is going to Dewsbury on Sunday. But if he has a weldy, if he feels like he's ready, he can be available for next week against Huddersfield or play for our reserves in the derby. The thing is with dual reg, especially us being the senior affiliation, Craig, we're kind of in the driving seat, and we can be the puppet master and use Dewsbury for what it's worth, because we're helping them out, but they're helping us out with the injured players. This could happen to Ethan Ryan as well when he comes back, but a win-win situation for the Robins and for Elliot Minchella, in my opinion.
Yeah, I echo basically what Chris and Mark have said as well. I think if you get minutes, he needs the minutes. I'd hate for him to play in this first game, because it all comes down to timing with passes, tackling. So getting minutes under his belt, like Chris said, it's a long season. You know, it might take him a few games to get up to speed of the game and get his body ready as well for them big hits. Then come back and he's going to be sharp and he's going to improve the team. Yeah.
He's got some competition though, Mike, hasn't he? Obviously, Matty Staunton's got the 13 shirt. You've got Dean Hadley, Kane Lynette, 𝐷𝐾𝐲 can play in the back row. For you, in my opinion, I think he does start 13 when he comes back. I'd like to see him come off the bench a few times when he does return in red and white or yellow and blue, as you're donning tonight. A lovely shirt, by the way. You suit it. They should have got you instead of Jordan Abdul to model it. But I think Elliot Minchella, I'm looking forward to seeing him back in Hull Kingston Rovers colours.
Yeah, I am as well. He's somebody, especially what we saw in that 2020 season, where we were playing some good rugby, but we were obviously on the right end of some results. And I feel like he's got a lot to offer. The one thing that I do think might have slipped people's minds a little bit, and I hope I'm right here saying this on a live podcast, but he actually came off the bench in the 2 games at the beginning of the 2021 season. I think there might have been a little bit of something that was questioned, or something where he wasn't necessarily in that starting lineup for those 2 games, and then obviously he picked up that injury against St Helens, and maybe that has got something to play with it as well. You know, maybe the added thought of him going down to the Championship is sort of to blood him down there a little bit as well, because there must have been something in his game what Tony Smith has seen where he thinks he maybe needs to improve in a certain area before he's thrown back into that starting team.
Yeah, really good points. And I think we've had a few people agree and disagree with us, and that's absolutely great. Keith Pollard, a fan of the show and a friend of the podcast. Obviously, he's been on a few times. He said, I'd rather have seen Minchella on the bench in the first team. And obviously, you can see his reasonings why. I think there's pros and cons to everything in this situation. But whatever happens, we hope to see Elliot Minchella completing his game on Sunday for the Dewsbury Rams against Sheffield Eagles. So we know Elliot Minchella won't be playing in the round 1 clash, but these are the guys who are going to be lining up for the cherry and whites and the red and whites. And once I've read the teams out, guys, we'll go through everybody. Say what your starting team would be if you was Tony Smith. So the visitors from Lancashire line up with Jake Bibby, Zach Hardacre, former Robin Ian Thornley, Liam Marshall and Cade Cust, Thomas Luluai, Brad Singleton, Sam Powell and Patrick Mago, Willie Isa, Liam Farrell and John Bateman made the 13. Then you've got Morgan Smithies, Cade Ellis, Harry Smith, Oliver Partington, Liam Bairn, Kai Pearce-Paul, Joe Shorrocks, Jai Field and Abbas Miski, who signed pre-season from the London Broncos. The Robins will line up. This is their 21-man squad. So star signing Lachlan Coote gets the nod. In the 21, we don't know if he's going to be 100% fit yet, but he'll join Brad Takairangi, Sean Kennedy-Dal, Ryan Hall and Jordan Abdul. We've got Albert Vette, Matt Parcell, George King, Dean Hadley coming back from injury, and Kane Lynette. Matty Staunton, Ches Litton, Corbin Sims, Jimmy Carnos, Will Dagger, Mikey Lewis, Rowan Milne, Sam Wood, Greg Richards, Tom Garrett and Frankie Halton. Guys, I will name my team first and then we'll go through it all and we'll go behind our rationale. So I have gone with Lachlan Coote, Sam Wood, Takairangi, Kenny Dowland Hall, Lewis and Abdul in the halves with Vette, Parcell and King in the front row. Kane Lynette, Dean Hadley and Matty Staunton make up the 13. And on the bench, I have gone for Ches Litton, Corbin Sims, Jimmy Carnos, Greg Richards. Chris, what's yours, buddy?
Yeah, almost identical, mate. Apart from I've gone for Garrett over Richards.
Yeah. Mike, what have you done for your starting 13? Any changes?
No, mine is the same as yours, is Joe. I did put Staunton in the second row and Hadley at loose, which goes against the squad number theory, but I don't think, from what Tony Smith said, he doesn't necessarily agree with or believe in the squad numbers meaning too much anyway. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Mark, you said you didn't want to tell me yours because you thought I'd copy. Have I copied you?
No, not really. No, not far
Go
off.
on.
I'm just swapping. Hey, mostly very similar. I'm just swapping Sims for Vete because I just think we've got to fight a bit of fire with fire. And Sims seems to be in that sort of mode at the moment. Hopefully, we'll get a big stint out of him this year. So exactly the same as that. But then I'm going to have Frankie Holton, Litton, Richards, and Vete on the bench.
Right.
I just think that Frankie Holton, after just little sound bites that Tony Smith's been putting in pre-season, I just think he fancies this kid. So maybe with Hadley 75% and Halton 75%, you might get one good player. So that's my thoughts on that one.
Nice. Craig, is your starting team very similar to all our four, or you've gone for something completely different?
Yeah, I've gone exactly the same as you on the same bench, but I was thinking it was between Holton and Richards for me on the bench, but I have gone for Richards.
I just think I'll say what I think Jimmy 𝐿𝐼𝐤 will get the nod. That is probably my team anyhow, but I do think that's the team Tony might go for. I think Jimmy 𝐿𝐼𝐤 will predominantly be playing as a second row, maybe a prop forward as well. Maybe I'd like to see Frankie Holton. Mark, I agree with you. I think Tony Smith has a lot of praise for him, but the beauty of us of the team selection is, Chris, we're missing people out who a few years ago would have got into Rovers' side straight away. I mean, some people are missing out Dean Hadley. People are saying, do you start Vete or Sims? Whatever happens, even though it is round one, we are in a bit of a strong position. And looking on paper, as Brian Clough said, we're good on paper, but unfortunately we play on grass. But on paper, Rovers seem to look quite strong coming into round one.
Yeah, and obviously, Johnson got the injury, didn't he? That's ruled him out for a while, and if you put him into the mix, we're really bolstered the squad there, wouldn't we? So, it's a good position for us to be in. And when you compare the squad with, to Wigan's, on paper, and I know what you just said about on paper, but I think the mindset, the difference in what we've got now is that we don't really need to look at the opposition. We look at our own squad. We look at our own 13, and it's took a number of years to do that, because you'd almost look at the opposition squad in games gone by and go, right, well, they're going to beat us just looking at the players that they've got. Well, actually, it's almost irrelevant who the opposition are playing, because we're so confident in our own players. And, like I say, you've mentioned Wigan squad. I've got no fear from them whatsoever. And when I look at Rovers, we're in a great position where we're debating who should be starting, who's out, minutes for certain players. Should he drop out the squad? Should he come into it? It's a position we haven't had for a long time.
Yeah, and I think as much as we don't look at the opposition and we have changed our mentality, I think we do need to maybe go in depth and look at, we did the double over this team last year, and we're going to go in through a big transition. They've obviously got Matty Pete, who was an assistant coach. He came through the ranks. He'd been at Wigan St Pat's. Really big on his defence. I listened to a snippet on BBC with Sean Wayne, obviously the England coach, but he's a director of rugby at Wigan Warriors now. He said Matt is really big into defence. He said he's trying to change the structure up a bit, but I think they're going to be a bit of a different beast. They're going to go for it. You've got like your Liam Farrells, your Willie Ices, your Lulaways. We're coming into the twilight zone now of their career. But after last year finishing fourth, if anyone else had finished fourth, you'd have snapped your hand up, because of the stature of Wigan and the fans, what their demand. They had a lot of criticism both on and off the pitch for the Cherry and Whites. But for me, to answer Alfie's such question, we'll go through everyone. Who do you think Wigan's best player is? I mean, I'm more looking for I'm going to look out for. I think 𝐾𝐜𝐿𝐼. He's going to replace Jackson Hastings. He's going to change a different mentality. He's only played 21 games in the NRL, but I think Wigan's best player for me still is Liam Farrell. He's line running his second to none. I don't think there's a better line runner in the league. He's very aggressive. He's still got pace at 32, 33. Seems to have been around the block for years. But I think if I'm targeting a star man for the Cherry and Whites, Chris, I'm going to say Liam Farrell.
Yeah, and you're probably expecting a bit more from John Bateman this season. I think he was probably one of the better players for Wigan last season, but by his own standards, he probably wasn't where he expected to be. Cust is obviously the obvious one to pinpoint, and he's a standout man. But they have got, there's no denying about it. They've got a rich heritage, and they have got a strong squad there. But like I said, when you go man to man with them, I don't fear them too much, and I don't think Rovers, the players, will be in awe of them. And when I look at the bench, what they're potentially going to put out, I reckon we've got a stronger interchanges than what they have.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, Craig, when Chris just mentioned the bench there, we go back to last season's game, especially the one at Seoul Group Craven Park, when Jez came off the interchange, and we had, I think, Staunton started on the bench that day. And we took them by storm. And I think if you do look at the Wigan squad, they've got a lot of new signings: Ian Thornley, Patrick Mago from the South Sydney Rabbitohs, who've come up with big raps. But they've got a lot of youngsters in there. You look at Kai Pearce, Paul Lee and Ben. You're missing Ethan Havard out of there. But for Wigan, they're a bit of a hit and miss team last year, and in my opinion, they might struggle again this year. I still think they'll be in the playoffs, but I just think because of the transition they're going through this year, maybe it's going to be similar to last. But for you, Craig, who's your star man for the Wigan Warriors, and who do we need to watch out if we want to pick up anything from Friday night's round one clash?
I actually think John Bateman.
Yeah.
I think he'll be a completely different player this year. I've got him actually playing loose forward, where I know a lot of last season he played second row. I think he'll be very dangerous. But you just actually mentioned one of the young kids, like Kai Pearce Paul. I think he could be there or thereabouts as one of their main threats this year. It came out of nowhere, and he actually had quite a good offload game. Obviously, he's got to step up now, so we'll see. But yeah, for me, John Bateman.
Mark, who would you take from the Warriors? I think, like Craig just said, you've got Kai Pearce Paul, obviously a London lad, not a Wigan lad, but they've bred success through their youngsters now, and they're a bit like what Leeds did the first few years when 𝐂𝐿𝐤𝐿𝐵𝐻, Cam Smith came through the ranks. There's a lot of pressure on them young lads now, and it can either go one way or the other. And I do think Friday's a great chance, off the cuff, under the lights, should be over 7,000 there, hopefully 7,500. Get Craven Park rocking, and hopefully we can do, like Leonard said, like Wigan played poorly against us away. They normally do, and we do have a chance against them, I think, on Friday. Even though we're not the favourites, we're only, I think, 4 on the handicap, but I think it's going to be a really good game Friday. 2 very matched teams, and we're probably going to go toe-to-toe in the rankings predominantly throughout the year.
I'm with you, Joe, with Liam Farrell, really. He usually does gets a couple of tries, doesn't he? Runs good lands and that. And that's why I think we might play Dean Adley, who's a good defender, isn't he, on that right edge sort of thing. And hopefully, I mean, he'll be a bit rusty, will Dean, but I think he's got an iron lung, hasn't he, Dean? I think he's a real fit kid, so hopefully he can do a deal up on there. Liam Farrell, keep him quiet. But I just think they're younger kids. I mean, they've been around for a couple of years now, and they think they're obviously Billy Big Bollocks, don't they? Do you know what I mean?
Wigan mentality.
So I think that we just need to get stuck into them and obviously keep our lid on it, not get involved with them, but try and just obviously win that battle in the middle. And I think if we win that battle in the middle, we've got the obviously the centres and the wingers can do some damage.
Yeah, Mike, I just was going to go on to the outside backs. I think as much as the forwards are vital, I think you look at if one of the sides going to be that Absis Miski and Ian Thornley, whoever's going to come against her. I mean, you look at what Brad Takarangi did to Ian Thornley last year when he was in Alicia and sent him for an hot dog then in front of the South Stand at the time. But I do think if we can win our individual battles, and we've probably got more experience now than Wigan, and that's saying something. You look at our outside backs compared to theirs. You look in the forwards, we're matching up against them now, and I think that could be a real game changer come Friday night. Is that experience probably coming from the likes of Sean Kenny-Dowell and Ryan Hall? Because if they come up against Miski and Thornley, or it could be Hardacre and Marshall, I guarantee that'll be the other side. But either way, I do think they could change the game, especially that left edge for Kingston Rovers.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the players that you've mentioned so far, I think every single one of them deserves credit for being mentioned. But the one that I'm going to go with is Zach Hardacre, due to the fact of the utility value that he adds. Obviously, if they pick up an injury in a position, he's somebody that can quite easily shift around that back line. The fact that obviously he's got a kicking game with him as well. But the fact that, I think this is probably the main reason he might be out to try and prove a point, because obviously he came quite close to leaving Wigan in the close season. That obviously didn't happen. Does that motivate him? Does that demotivate him? You know, there's going to be quite a lot of questions that are going to be asked of him and his commitment to the club. So it'll be an interesting player to watch, from my opinion.
Yeah, it was linked with Rovers, wasn't it, Chris, and Hull FC. I think he wasn't allowed to speak to the Hull clubs because he said it was too far to travel. That's what was getting on his back, and it was an hour from Leeds, whereas they said if you'd have signed for Rovers and Hull, it's an hour the other way. So that could have been a bit of a surprise. But I remember at the time, Chris, you said you weren't really bothered about Zach Hardacre, and probably that stands still now, especially talking about people like Sam Wood. How impressed have you been with him in pre-season? Because he's going to get the number 2 shirt technically on the right-hand side. And I think him making his Rovers first team debut technically on Friday night, if we can kick to him and 𝐶𝐺 and win that battle in the air, we saw it so much over pre-season with little glimpses. We saw it last year with 𝐶𝐺. But you look at what Sam Wood's played with the likes of Aidan Sezer, Danny Brough. You look at his highlights, what that kid on YouTube put on. A lot of his tries are in the air, and he's 6'3", 6'4". I think as good as Kenny Dowell and Ryan Hall are on one side, you've got a bit of versatility in the air, Chris, on the left. I'm on the right, sorry.
Yeah, and obviously with Ethan Ryan and Ben Crooks being injured, Sam Wood's pretty much fits into that slot, doesn't he? And I think Mark mentioned about, if Dean Hadley plays, he's work rate in defence and strengthening that right side. And I fully see Sam Wood fitting into that bracket of strengtheners in defence. And I think what Tony Smith wants is that, he wants us to be as good as the left side, the right side to be as good as the left, and to have that balance across the side, which we missed last season. There was some of the games, it was scary, that right edge defence, wasn't it? And you'd be tearing your hair out at some of it, what was going on. And I know that it didn't help by having the centre and winger, the partnerships changing almost every game, players coming in the team, then going out again. But for me, I think Sam Woods has shown that he strengthens us on that right hand side, especially when 𝐶𝐺 goes missing sometimes in defence. I think we need someone out there who's going to fill the gaps. I think Sam Wood does that, and just his physical presence. He's a big boy. And you mentioned the kicking game, going out to him on the right edge. I think if we don't exploit that, would be absolutely crackers, because you've got 𝐶𝐺 and Woods out there who are 2 really big lads. So it's going to be exciting to see how they go, because I think what we will see from Wigan is they'll be chucking everything at us, and I think we are going to have to front up in defence. And for me, I'm pleased Sam was playing over someone like Ethan Ryan or Ben Crooks.
Yeah, definitely. I think, Craig, you was there at that Dewsbury friendly a few weeks ago. So was I. It was absolutely bitter. I'm still falling out now from that journey home down the M62. But he is a big lad, like Chris has said. But he's also got a bit of pace. I know opposite, it was only against Adam Rada and Jake Sweeting, who aren't the best, and that's no disrespect to them. But even against the Huddersfield, his former team last week and the week before, he's got a bit about him, Sam Wood. And I think a bonus is, which can be seen as a negative, he's on a 1-year deal, so he's got a lot to play for. The negative is there could be a lot of clubs snapping him up. But if he can continue his form from pre-season and what he did at the back end of last year for Huddersfield, forgetting Lachlan Coote, these new signings, Sam Wood could be a real coup for the Robins. And I'm hoping, like Chris said, we do get to see a lot of him, because on form, if he carries on, you'd probably be struggling to put the likes of Ethan Ryan and Ben Crooks and Will Tate and PLT into this side. But for me, Craig, yeah, Sam will definitely want to watch. I'm looking forward to seeing him against full-time Super League opposition come Friday night.
Yeah, I actually think he's looked solid, if anything. He's been one of the pickouts in pre-season. Like I said, I think he's been a bit under pressure as well in terms of positions, because you've got Crooks, Ethan Ryan on that side challenging him. I think, obviously, Crooks and Ethan Ryan haven't played in pre-season, but you can't drop him. And hopefully he'll take the form he's had in pre-season into the first game. But yeah, he's tall. He's actually quicker than I thought he was going to be. He's strong. He's got a good handoff. He's quite skillful with the ball as well. I know, again, it was against Dewsbury, but the way he took the ball and then kicks it through for Michael Lewis to score the try, some wingers would have just kept on the ball, maybe put into touch, but he didn't. He tried to do the outside the box, and, full credit to him.
Yeah, definitely. Remember, guys, you listening, drop your questions in. Drop your starting 17 on Friday night. And Alfie, again, a good question there. It's going to go on to my next segment, which is probably expectations for Hull Kingston Rovers this year. We'll mix it in with his question, would you rather win the Challenge Cup or Grand Final? I did see the debate on Twitter. There was a lot of arguments on that. In my opinion, before we go around the forum. I think I'd love to win the grand final. I do think that's bigger than the Challenge Cup now, but realistically, I know me and Mike was talking about it before. I think Rovers have got to have a dabble at the Challenge Cup this year. You've got to win 3 games to get to the final. We know who's going to be in the round 3 and 4 draws. We've seen that on BBC earlier in the week. But I think if Rovers can get to Tottenham, it's weird not saying Wembley, Chris, but I think that's probably the aim. I'd love us to finish mid-table, get that playoff spot. But for me, I'd love to see the Challenge Cup come into East Hull this year. I know it's a long shot. I know everybody's raring to go, but you've got 11 Super League teams and probably about 5 Championship teams you've got to beat. And on the day, Rovers proved, look at knockout rugby against Warrington, we can do it. And I'm hoping if we're going to pick up a bit of silverware, let's be realistic, it's going to be that over the League Leaders Shield and Grand Final. But for me, Alfie, I'll go on to Chris next, but I'd love to win the Grand Final. But realistically for 𝐿𝐾𝐲, I think Challenge Cup's the best shot in 2022, Chris.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? Asking a Rovers fan, what would you rather win, the Challenge Cup or the Grand Final? No, we haven't been in that position for a long time, have we? Where you're actually
stay up.
Yeah. So, do you know what? The only thing I would say is, mate, if you pick the Challenge Cup, you're writing off nearly over a third of the season, because obviously it's been played a lot earlier this season.
Yeah,
the Challenge Cup, and why can't we do both?
Exactly. That can be seen as a bonus, can't it, Mike? I mean, when was the August, wasn't it, normally? But it is in May. I think it's May the 30th, isn't it? Is it just before June? And I think that's what Chris has just nailed on the head there, that you see a lot of teams. You look at Cass, when they played Salford the week before their Challenge Cup final last year, they got beat 70 points to 10 because they played the under-19s, whereas that's probably a little bit different this year. But for you, Mike, what shirt do you want? Do you want a Grand Final winning shirt, or do you want a Challenge Cup 2022 shirt hung up behind you this time next year?
Oh, it's one of them, innit? I think it sounds awful, but in any other sport, I would pick the league competition over the cup competition. But I just feel that, like, I'm a firm believer of, if you win the league, you win the league. That should be it. You should finish top. You should win the league. Yeah. I understand why we have the playoffs and the grand final and all the sort of camaraderie that comes with it. But if we're talking about rugby league and we're talking about 2022, then I want to see a player playing for 𝐿𝐾𝐲 lifting that Challenge Cup trophy.
Definitely. Mark, when we spoke to you earlier about your memories of Hull Kingston Rovers, you mentioned the John Player trophy, all the floodlight trophy and everything. And that's probably took a shining off certain trophies because we had so many. The Yorkshire Cup back in the day, obviously before my time, but there is less trophies to win now. And that's why it makes it so special. But I do think the Challenge Cup and the Grand Final can be, they can be compared to each other. But for me, I just think it'd be nice for us to maybe, hopefully in the next 3 or 4 years, depending on what Tony Smith does, I think that's got to be our aim now. We've stayed up, we're beating that barrier now. I think we've got to definitely aim for something. But for you, mate, what's your target this year for Hull Kingston Rovers?
I'd love us to win both, obviously. But I'm a realist, and I'd take 4th or 5th again in the league, like baby steps. You're not going to go from 12th to first, are you, overnight? No. I'd rather do it gradually. And obviously, a really good cup run would be great. I don't think it's not insurmountable for Rovers to win the Challenge Cup. That is a fact. And we'd all have a couple of 3 days on the All Lash, wouldn't we, if that occurred? So that'll do me for the steady away season, 4th, 5th, maybe a little bit of an improvement, and then let's get to Tottenham. Let's go and sort the Londoners out.
As well, Joe, it's worth mentioning, if we are to win it, we'll have to do it playing a game less, won't we? Obviously, just our
that's right.
Finishing the season higher up than we previously have, so it'd be with having one less game to play if it was to reach it. So I think we'd only have to play 3 games.
Do we come in at round 6? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do we?
Yeah.
So it's Salford, Wakefield, FC, and Huddersfield who will be in the bottom, who will play in round 5, and then us and everybody else top 6 in. Yeah, God, I totally forgot about that. Craig, finally, what would you do? But I think, in my opinion, for Rovers this season, you probably heard when we did the show last week, as much as you'd love to have a repeat of a semi or getting even near the Grand Final or the Challenge Cup, if we can do what we did last year and cement our place in Super League for next year, and we know we're not going to get relegated again, and we can sign players like 𝐿𝐾𝐲 𝐤𝐞, more established players, instead of scrambling the transfer market in January when nobody else wants anybody, and we have to get players who shouldn't be playing in Super League, and that's being honest about the teams the past few years. But for me, mate, I think if we go steady, we start the season well and start them platforms and building up, giving Mikey more game time, seeing the best of 𝐁𝐿 and 𝐂𝐼 again, there's no reason why we can't make the playoffs or go far in the cup. But I think if we can have a very similar to season to last, we'll be very happy. But what's your aspirations for the Red and Whites this time around?
Yeah, as much as I'd love a grand final, seeing Rovers at Old Trafford, I think we've got to go for the Challenge Cup this year. As well as, I think we've got a squad good enough to get in the playoffs and have a really good run in that. Again, go back to last year, 80 minutes away from a grand final. Nobody would have predicted that. I think, again, on paper, we've got more experience like 𝐌𝐤𝐤, Jordan Abdul, the experience some guys have had. Why not make a grand final? But Challenge Cup.
Yeah, I think we're all in unison there. And for you guys, obviously, you can get involved as well. And you mentioned the likes of Mikey and Jordan Abdul there, and that's leading on with the questions. Keep asking them, Rachel Harrison. Thank you. Great show, guys. We really appreciate your support. Who do you think could win you Young Player of the season this year, and who's your favourite of all time? I think for Young Player, you're probably looking at Mikey again. He's got a chance, hasn't he? You don't know how many games PLT and the likes of Will Dagger. Jez is still only 24, but I think, Chris, the bonus of our squad now is we are talking about Sam Wood and Michael Lewis, who are all early 20s. Jordan Abdul, 27. You've got these players who aren't just here for the next 2 seasons, 1 year, and then going to go home. As much as we've got our aging players, we've got an abundance of youth, and I think it's hard to you don't know what player's going to do well this season. I think a lot of people have got a point to prove. You look at Abdul; he's not even classed as a young player anymore, but he's going for the England spot. You've got the likes of Louis Johnson who want to play for Jamaica, Kane Lynette and Lachlan Coote. They all want to be playing for Scotland. So these players are going to be playing the best. George King at Ireland, so is Frankie Halton. But I think for young players, you're probably talking about Mikey again, aren't you? And Jez, I think it's second season syndrome. You look at a lot of people blowing smoke up Will Price's backside, and Mikey's not getting half of it, and that's probably because he's not as cocky and he hasn't got his father, his father's footsteps. But for me, Chris, I think the young kids, again, as long as they can carry on developing, they've got a lot of rugby to play, and if we see the best of them again, then so be it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how they go as well, which is a bonus.
Yeah, to be fair, mate, I think there's 3 contenders. I think you've Jeslett and Mikey Lewis, and how old's Louis Johnson?
Yeah, Louis only about 23, isn't he? Something like that.
Because you just look at, purely based on game time, who's going to be featuring in that first team, and you start peeling away from your first 13, and there's not many players who fit into that young player category who'll be getting big game time, is there? So, I think it'll probably come down to 3 contenders, and it's going to be exciting to see, isn't it? Because what we're hoping is that, if it is Mikey Lewis, Jeslett, and, it's because they've had a repeat of last season, and if they have had a repeat of last season, it probably pretty much bodes well for 𝐿 Rovers, because it means that we'll probably have been successful.
Yeah, it really does. Mark, I remember when we used to do the old radio forums, and when I messaged you about coming on the show, you could see all our old Facebook messages, and all it said was shit again and what we're doing to put it. All it was that, and then we changed our tone this year. But I think what we always used to say was we're just buying people on loan and buying has-beens, and we haven't got young people coming through, whereas that's probably different now. We have got the likes of Phoenix, who's come from Keighley, but we're going to treat him as our own now. He's going to be with us through his youth and going into the system. You've got people like Will Tate, you've got Max Kirkbright, Dan Okoro, Connor Moore, all these people who are coming through the ranks, and especially with the reserve system this year, Mark, these young kids aren't just going to be playing 80 minutes of rugby once every 5 weeks. We've got a derby next week, then the 19 season starts, you've got the 16 starting, and with Jason Neverton and the other lads in the academy and scholarship, Kev Deaton, bringing these guys through. If we can have one system, all playing the same way, all living off the same ethos and dream of playing for the red and whites, then that's what you see in the long-term process, and that's why Leeds, Wigan, Saints have had so much success, and that's what we've probably got to emulate. It's a long-term progress, but we are seeing a lot of youngsters from the city and from outside the area. We are attracting players now, which is great to see, and testament to what Paul Lakin's doing off the pitch with the likes of the under-19s with Jason Neverton.
Well, it was always going to take time on it, Joe, or the lads, because Hull FC was a effectively bigger side, and they attracted all the bodies, good players in Hull, didn't they? So now there's nothing like playing with your own badge on your chest, is there? Do you know, remember when I came through the ranks at Grimsby playing in the Pontins before academy systems and all that? You have 17-year-old me playing with Gary Bertels, injured pros who's coming back from injury, and playing against really good sides, Man United reserves, Leeds reserves, and you're playing against men, and that's the only way to learn the game, innit? But this under-23s now in the football level, it's like playing against like your same age group till you're 23, basically. So, but this dual reg and all, that's great to get like game time, but there's nothing like wearing a 𝐿 Rovers badge as a young kid, is he, on your chest sort of thing.
No, there's not. And Mike, I think like the dual reg system, we've already spoke about Elliot Minchella, but you have got the likes of Rowan Milnes, Will Dagger, who are great players and contending, but they're probably going to miss out on that starting 17. Let's be realistic, most times they're not. But Rowan Milnes, he can go and play for Dewsbury, can go and play for the reserves. He's still part of it, and as much game time, especially for halfbacks and fullbacks, for them to start organising games and start playing against men. And then you've got Dan Okoro, Conor Moore playing in the, as a prop forward in the front row role, and they're going to be playing against men and people who play part-time and want to wipe your head up on a Saturday and Sunday if you're playing at Fev or you're playing against Jeff, like Elliot's going to do this weekend. And I think, like Mark said, having that dual reg and playing against older people and learning how to cope with first team rugby league, we're going to reap the rewards, aren't we? And I think coming into 2022, as much as last season was great, you're probably looking a bit more positively now, because we expect to do certain stuff on the field, but our players who aren't playing and our young kids, they've got a system now. It's very much, it's not just the first team at 𝐿 Rovers, it's the reserves, it's Dewsbury. We're all part of that one system now.
Absolutely. And I think what we are obviously talking about, the dual reg and the reserves here, but I think how it needs to be looked at is it needs to be looked almost at on a player-to-player basis, because some players will benefit more through dual reg and some players will benefit more from playing in the reserves at Rovers. Some of the younger kids might benefit more from doing that dual reg system. But let's just say somebody like Rowan Milnes, for example, who isn't carrying an injury, who could quite easily drop into the first team, he might be better bossing our reserves around the field than he might be going on dual reg and playing in the Championship, because that's something that he's done in the past. He's got quite a lot of experience doing that. So I feel like we need to be looking at it on a player-to-player basis and just working out where is the right place for that player to go. There's been quite a few comments today about, obviously, with Minchella and looking at possibly the field, the condition of the pitch. Is that right to send somebody there? I'm assuming it would be, and it is, because otherwise we wouldn't be doing it. Obviously, we used it well last year with Mikey going to York on a few different occasions. He went back and played in the cup final at Wembley. I feel like it's just looking at it on a sort of player-to-player basis. We know it's a short-term thing. You could do it 1 week on, 1 week off if you need to. And I think we just need to manipulate it to the best of our ability.
Yeah, and I remember when me and Chris did our reserve team last week, Craig, it's going to be really strong. And I think from a fan perspective, from your opinion as well, it's getting to these games, playing on a Friday night, playing a derby match and getting a few thousand people there like the old Colts used to do on East Park, and having a game at Rovers every week, if it's the under-16s, the 19s, the reserves, or the first team, or the women's. We've got them in the Championship now, and it's just getting as much rugby, as much income into the club, building it all under one roof, as Brian Potter used to say on Phoenix Nights. But it's about getting that identity. And for us fans, Craig, any rugby's good rugby. We spoke in the, before we came live about how much we love the sport and we're buzzing that it's back. But we're going to be seeing more of 𝐿 Rovers in the shapes of the women's, the 19s and the reserves. And hopefully we can get a good crowd, because that's what we want, don't we? We want to treat them the same as our first team. We are their supporters and we want them to do as well as the first team. We want them to be progressing, because then when they make that step up, it's nothing new from them and they're not like rabbits in headlights.
Here's a question for you, Joe. Sorry, I just jumped in, and you can answer it as well, Craig. But how are the reserves going to work next season? Because obviously the training group is the first team, so the first team squad in a way. The training group. Danny Maguire is obviously coach. How do you train a reserve team when in essence there's not a reserve team squad?
I imagine, Craig. That will probably. Dewsbury I reckon by the Wednesday, if we're playing on like the Saturday, they'll know by the Wednesday we're sending 3-4 kids. And I imagine they might go off in little groups. They might do one of pose sessions against the first team. I know the reserves isn't every week, so I think they'll probably match it up and they'll be doing team news a little bit earlier. That's all I could think. I don't know, Craig, what do you think? How different? I mean,
I think to sort the dynamics, I think it could be quite difficult, especially like if you've got injuries or someone midweek gets an injury and then you call in somebody back. If you say, you're going to Dewsbury or playing in the reserves. But I'm sure there's like a process that they've all thought about, and it's hopefully, fingers crossed, it all works, and players are getting game time.
Cunning plan, maybe.
And just going back to you're sorry,
Go
Mark.
on, Mark. What did you say?
No, that's all right. I was saying maybe there's a cunning plan somewhere in there, maybe, but more intelligent men than us, probably, maybe.
Don't take much.
No,
really
absolutely.
Really doesn't take much. But no, guys, obviously that was great, that. And we'll move on to our next segment, which is about the purchase of Seoul Group Craven Park. It was announced earlier in the week on Old Daily Mail that Paul Larkin said it's nearly done. We've had that for a few months now. But obviously it's trying to, with all the COVID restrictions and everything like that, we open with the new sponsors, with the new names of the stands, with the Craven Street returning, that hopefully the ground can be bought soon and we will become the landlords. What would you like to see on the development of the ground and the surrounding land? Kai, I'll answer your question first before the lads say what they'd change about the stadium. I'd like to see a bit more better training facilities. I'd like to see the pitch get done a little bit better on the backfield behind East Park. Maybe create, I don't mean the same as your Man Cities or your Leicesters because the money is ridiculous and we're nowhere near that, but maybe a little bit of a campus where there's education as well. I know there's the school behind, but I know that's not a mainstream school. It is, it's for naughty kids, so I don't think any of our lads will be going there unless they're in trouble. But anyhow, that's for another day. But I'd like to see possibly, Chris, before I move on to everybody else, that's probably my aim, that the facilities, the gym maybe gets improved or the stand gets repainted. Little stuff needs doing because it's a great stadium. It's a great little stadium. I love it. And not just because it's a Rovers thing, but I think the North Stand, Craven Street, looks amazing now. The West Stand needs touching up a bit. I think the East Stand could be developed a little bit better and maybe just making it a little bit more enclosed and getting the atmosphere up. But there's loads of things that can be changed. So, Chris, I'll come to you first. What's your opinion on buying the stadium? It is quite a big deal off the pitch. When we spoke to Rob Crossland, remember, guys, listen to his Heritage cast because it's so different. It's not about playing. It's all about business and working with Neil. And that was fantastic insight, wasn't it, Chris?
Yeah, and I think the purchase of Craven Park's crucial to Rovers at the moment, just to maximise on some of the income streams what they're missing out on. So, for instance, the North Stand development, which obviously was heavily based on EU funding, we're only a tenant in that. We don't actually own it. So I think the purchase of Craven Park is vital because instead of being a tenant in one of our stands, we actually become the owner, and then the companies, businesses that are already based in there, they're paying their rates to the club rather than to the council as they are now. So, there's some little things there that are going to make a huge difference. And I think Lakin mentioned that don't expect any major developments to be happening, very soon. So I don't think we're going to start seeing, buildings, whatever popping up. I think there's a bit of a longer term plan. Obviously, there's a need, isn't there, to improve the training facilities, etc., around the club, and I think we've got to be honest about what developments can actually take place on Craven Park. When everyone was getting giddy about Bet365 or whatever coming in and saying, "Oh, we're going to build a casino on Preston Road," and it's a bit pie in the sky stuff, wasn't it? So potentially housing, retail. I think we're going to be going down that route. But I think for the stability of the club and for the long-term future, it's vital you own the stadium, isn't it? And that way you can bring in funding, you can get loans, etc., because you've got something to put against it. So hopefully it won't be too long before it's concluded.
Yeah. Mike, would you put a Napoleon's in, or where are you changing at Craven Park?
One thing that's kind of bugged me for a long time is the fact that the East Stand isn't the full length of the pitch.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's something where one of the first things that we should probably look at is kind of extending that out and making that to be the length of the field. It's where our atmosphere is. I've been in there in games where it is absolutely rammed, and having that little bit of extra space. It's not like it was in 2001 where people were sat down in the East Stand because there weren't that many fans going. And nowadays it's rammed. It needs to be extended. It needs to be all the way along. Obviously, Craven Street has been a great success. I think, if I'm really honest, I would like to see a stand in there. I know we don't have the fan base at the moment to necessarily support that with all the other space in the stadium. But how cool would it be for Craven Street to actually be a street? Potentially like down the back of the East Stand or something. Again, you don't have to sort of cut something off to do something else. Things can be moved and things can be worked out. But yeah, I think it would be quite cool to keep Craven Street maybe as a little, street down the back of the East, and then still having some sort of stand at the south there.
Yeah, I suppose that'd be the knock-on effect, wouldn't it? If you built on the ground and you could extend it a little bit, move it up, turf it, concrete way, whatever. But yeah, really good ideas. I think that might be something to look at in the future. Mark, what do you, when you go to Craven Park, where do you think, oh, that could be a little bit better?
Actually, I think Mike's just hit the nail on the head, really.
Yeah.
I think extending that east stand is... I actually went for a walk to the ground today to get me tickets for the Huddersfield game, and thinking they opened at 9:30, but they obviously opened at 10, so the gates was open. So I actually had a look round where you go on match day, don't you, and you just have a few beers and sing your heart out sort of thing. So when there's nobody in it, it's actually good to have a look. But I think that I'd like an hotel behind in the south stand, if I'm honest, and maybe with just 1,000 seats in front of it. Obviously, I'm getting a bit giddy here. And I think the Millwall stand needs flattening eventually, and maybe have a new stand in there. So, but obviously, it's not a bottomless pit, is it? It's rugby league. So, if we owned our own ground, we could make our own decisions, couldn't we? So,
yeah. And to be honest, Mark, it'd probably be easier to get an hotel room after a game than it would be to get a taxi from Craven Park, wouldn't it?
Oh, that is true, mate. Yeah, can't get one to punch bowl full of the money, end up running and spilling my chips. Do you know what I mean? So, it's
yeah, Craig, we go in the north stand, or a few rows away from me, and I think as great as the north stand is, I do think it can be a little bit soulless sometimes, especially in the back where the beers, where you buy your beer. I mean, they don't have enough stewards on. We've spoke about that, the same as in the east stand. If you was going to change anything about the stadium, where would you go? Because I think as a north stand member and buy me Rovers forever pass in the north, it is brilliant. It's great, you know, nice view. It's great to get back onto Preston Road on. It's easier to walk with my granddad and stuff like that. It's a lot accessible for older people and younger generations. But I do think, like the lads have said, there is a bit that needs to be worked on.
Yeah, I think obviously going for so many years now, the West Stand, I'd like to see that kind of, in my opinion, just be knocked down and built back up. Make it new. I think it's just a bit of in my opinion, it's just an eyesore. You kind of like looking up to the heavens, you know, looking at the seats, thinking, you know, sometimes I can't even hear them. You know, is there an atmosphere there? Could the atmosphere be better if that West Stand's gone? Like I said, we created like a new stand or seating area, like a bit like the North.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're all good points, aren't they? And like Keith's just said on the comments, like a museum, you know, near Craven Street, block that wind off. And I think talking of blocking the wind off, it probably make the atmosphere is brilliant, like we have mentioned, but on some, especially the windy nights and it's chucking it down, it is hard to generate an atmosphere. And if it was a bit more enclosed with everyone's ideas, what we've said, I think it is in the long run, and we've got a lot of time before anything like this happens. But they are really good points. But yeah, I think it's really interesting. And guys, if you change anything about the ground, just let us know, because you know, we're the fans at the end of the day, we pay to go, so it would be worth seeing.
I think one thing that's worth mentioning, Joe, is that any ground developments are only going to come back on the back of demand. Yeah. At the moment, we're not selling out Craven Park, are we? No. So at the moment, you know, when the East Stand originally got extended, it was because the demand was there to fill it, and people wanted to go in there. The North Stand obviously was built because we got funding, and obviously that gold stand wasn't fit for purpose. And I think Paul Lakin, when he very first spoke about purchasing Craven Park, said that the South Stand actually, even on the agenda, it'd be a redevelopment of the West Stand, because obviously it's probably not fit for purpose now. You know, how many years has it been there now? What, over 30 years? So it stood the test of time. But now, as a club moving forward, you know, that is obviously the main source of generating income from a commercial point of view, in terms of sponsors and the restaurant and all that kind of stuff. And even the play facilities, the changing rooms, etc., you know, need updating and bringing into the modern world, don't they? So, but fundamentally, and it'd be great to get, you know, Mike, Craig and Mark and your opinion, Joe, about crowds at Craven Park, and should we expect more people to be coming through the turnstiles on the back of a pretty successful season, not in terms of just where we finished in the league, but actually the type of rugby league that we was playing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we'll ask the lads soon, but I think my opinion, definitely. I mean, you look at Cass for Friday night against Salford. I know Radders has took over and they're going through a bit of a new era, but they're going to expect about 9,500. I don't think we'll touch that. And you look at what we did last year and what Cass did. I know they got to a Challenge Cup final, but you look at their stadium and what they have to offer pre-match and post-match. Mike, you'll know more because you're in Craven Street. I've only been in it the once. I know you've done it a few times, Chris. I don't know about you and Mark and Craig, but Mike, I'll go to you first. I think you can't offer much more. from a fan perspective and a fan experience. And I'm just hoping we do get the numbers, because I know we're biased and we support Rovers if there was in League One, never mind the Super League getting to a semi-final. But I just think we need more supporters because of what the lads are doing. We had more when we got relegated and when we was in the Championship, whereas now, I know COVID's still around, but let's be honest, now it's going to change. We're living in a world of it now. Nothing's good. We're not going to go back to what we was, fingers crossed. It'd be very unlikely, but I'm just hoping if we can get more fans, get the younger generation and get the older people back who have missed the past year or so, then it's more income, more money for players, more money for development, and it's just a knock-on effect, isn't it? You'll see it a lot being in Craven Street, but look how the success that's been, and let's be honest, it's just technically a bit of like tarmac with loads of stuff on it, which has looked great so far, and that's just a basic idea which the club have done really well.
Yeah, I think that Craig Franklin deserves a lot of credit for the idea of Craven Street and pulling all that together and developing that space into that buzz before a game, and that will help bring in some revenue. When we're talking about bringing the fans in, yes, from what we've seen, people in theory should be coming back. There's a lot of people struggling at the moment financially. Homeowners, you've got to look at your gas bills, your electric bills. People don't have as much disposable income at the moment. That's probably the same problem, not just for Rovers, but for every club. You only have to look at the numbers that Hull FC put out yesterday with their passes that are dropping. It's a really difficult time for a lot of people, and I feel like especially with the way that Rovers run their season passes through the Rovers Forever, it's almost like we need to start the season really strongly for those people that are maybe 50-50 on coming, to get them to start coming once that season starts rolling, because that could be quite pivotal, how good we start the season. Yeah,
Mark, we was in that away end at Warrington. That was just one I remember hugging you at the end. I mean, you might not remember. You looked like you'd had a few shandies. But you look at the games now at home, they're in a better atmosphere. We spoke to Jenna Brooks when she came on our, and she said the atmosphere at Rovers, there's nothing like it. And like Mike's already said, if we can get more people in and we can get that income, well, I'm just hoping success on the pitch breeds more success off the pitch, because that's a massive talking point. And hopefully we can get them people who have stayed away back now. And like you mentioned with the youth system about Hull being the predominantly team, and when we had Wayne Parker on, he mentioned the fact he had Yeeman and all them lot who ended up going to Hull because there was the better team. Whereas now, as much as we're very similar, let's be honest, in structure at this moment, but Rovers are the more entertaining. The on-field and off-field experience is great, and that can rub off on the younger generations because they're the future fans of these clubs. And I'm just hoping that the penny drops and we do get a bit of a new wave of supporters.
It's a nightmare being after Mike on this podcast because he should be on Question Time. Mike, I'm so impressed with you, mate, if I'm honest. He's like, keep nicking all my ideas. So, but no, it's I do think with the old cashless thing and the way the tickets is now on your phone and that, I think it's put a lot of the elder people maybe come in as well. The club needs to move forward, so I'm not against that, but I just maybe think that's a little bit of a point towards it maybe. And COVID has frightened people to death a little bit on it. So, but hopefully that'll start. Well, it is going away briefly, innit? And hopefully full time now. So let it piss off and let's get back on it basically. And we should be getting 9,000-10,000 for Wigan on Friday though, shouldn't we? Really?
Yeah. I'm surprised if we do though. There doesn't seem to be much talk about.
No, very quiet.
About demand for tickets, etc. Does they, or any danger of stands selling out or anything like that? I know Wigan are expected to bring up about 1,500. So that'll be good for us to boost the coffers, because obviously away support is normally pretty dreadful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awful at Rovers, isn't it? They don't bring many, do they? I'd be very surprised if they brought 1,500, Chris, if I'm honest. But we never know. Hopefully they do.
Yeah, let's hope so. And away support is vital. I mean, but Craig, you look at when Leeds came on the opening day in 2024, was they about 12,000, 13,000? And it seems as like we've been doing better on the pitch, even though in a COVID and pandemic times, but the supporters are dying down, and that's been doing a lot in rugby league. You look at attendances throughout the Northern Hemisphere and throughout Super League, Championship and League One. I'm just hoping with all the Premier Sports deal, the Channel 4, BBC, you've got the Sportsman on YouTube, you've got Super League who are providing rugby league now. Rugby league's there now, and we want, with this World Cup year, it's vital that we get the supporters in, because if we want England to be successful, we want crowds. We don't want Channel 4 to see a stand empty. We don't want Premier Sports to have championship grounds that are empty, and unfortunately they are. But like Mike said, it is unprecedented times. People are struggling, but I'm just hoping, like I said, we can get that back, because there's nothing better, is there, than like Nath Brace said, Craig, definitely the best atmosphere in the league being stood in the East Stand. And, you know, I'm buzzing to get back on Friday now, mate, aren't you? Now we're getting ramped up, and now the questions and people's passions coming back. I am buzzing to get back on Friday night.
Yeah, you know, I think you know, it's down to us fans as well to get the name out there. You know, I went to people I work with last season, they'll be telling you how many times I went up to them saying, come to Rovers, come to a Rovers game. The atmosphere is fantastic. You know, and they came. You know, there's a few people that came to it, and they absolutely loved it. A couple of them got season passes this year, and that was on down to the Castleford game, the one we won to, I think, basically give us a chance to get in the playoffs again. Yeah, and I think, you know, the media coverage, again, that's excellent. That's only going to be good for the sport. Getting on so many times. You've got The Sportsman, which is on YouTube, Sky Sports, you've got Premier Sports, obviously Channel 4, like you said. And, you know, for me, they've gone massive with it this year in terms of media coverage. You know, they need to get it out there, which I think that they are doing. Like you said, it's the World Cup at the end of the year. Get it out there, advertise it as much as you can. The one thing I would have liked the RFL to do is, so you've got all these big name sports stars, you know, you've got the Roy Keanes, the Wayne Rooneys, who go and watch rugby league, pay him, help him advertise the game. You know, Everybody knows who they are. You know, Adam Hill, to be fair, Channel 4, people know him as, you know, the comedian, but get a sports star out there, advertise it on Sky Sports, do some marketing, and, you know, that's one area where I'd like him to just improve the game.
Yeah, there's a lot of big stars, isn't there? I mean, you look at Tony Bellew. I mean, you look at Chris. He's the East Hull version of Tony Bellew, especially with that beard. You're absolute double of him. Hey.
Not with this, I'm not.
Go on, no, John. You're not. No, you're definitely not. But no, really good points, lads. I mean, like I said, you know, we're just the puppets out. We just want this to happen. The people above us and the directors and dictators of the sport, let's hope they can see sense as well. Because I do agree with you there, Craig, that I think getting the more popular people in, on the people on, you know, you look at Bellew and Keane, look how many people they have and followers, and even doing little podcasts. If you've got Roy Keane on the Rugby League podcast talking about it, it generates it, doesn't it? But all in the pipeline. Let's hope stuff like this happens. And we'll go on to a few odds now. Chris, I saw the bloke messages on Twitter earlier. Do you want to talk us through the odds of Rovers and Wigan and try scorers? Is there any of them yet? Have you got any information for us, buddy, before we go on to our predictions for Super League Round 1?
Yeah, and these come from 𝐿 bookmakers up in Bridlington. So if you're over there and you fancy having a punt, get across to them. But they're offering Rovers. What are they offering us at the moment? They're giving Rovers to win by 1 to 5 points at 11 to 12, by 6 to 10 points, 6 to 1, by 11 to 15 points, 10 to 1, 16 to 20 points, 14 to 1, 21 to 25 points. 20 to 1, and then if you look at the same ones for Wigan have got 1 to 5 points at 5 to 1, 6 to 10 points, 9 to 2, 11 to 15 points, 13 to 2, 16 to 20 points, 8 to 1, and 21 to 25 points, 14 to 1. And then if you start going at crazy points, I mean, Rovers are 125 to 1 to win by 56 points or more, which
I'll give you the money myself.
Yeah, if someone's putting a punt on that, I'll have some of what they're drinking. The draw is what we're looking at, 7 to 5. No, sorry, Rovers are outright to win 7 to 5. Wigan 4 to 7. So you know,
quite tight in it, really.
I was going to say, if you're looking at the odds, there's not much in it, and I think that's what if you look at the squads that we talked about at the start of the podcast, you know, I think it is going to be a difficult one to pick between the two sides, because you can make a case for both sides winning probably. Although I'm surprised Rovers are favoured a little bit more favourably.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I'm just looking at 𝐻𝐵ET now for regular season top try scorers. You've got Ryan Hall favourite at 6-4, Crooks is at 2-1, Lachlan Coote's 4s with Sam Wood, Mike is 10-1 with 𝐂𝐻𝐿ynett at 12, and 𝐂𝐾𝐅𝐼𝐤𝐵 and Kenny Dow are 20s. James Parker's asked, who do you think will be our top try scorer this year? I'll have a little think. I'm going to say, I think you're predominantly going to go over your wingers, aren't you? So Sam Wood and Ryan Hall. I think Ryan Hall again, Chris, at 6-4, quite good money on 𝐻𝐵ET, but I think you're not going far past him. I don't think Lachlan Coote will be scoring more, tries as much as people think he will. But then 𝐂𝐻𝐿ynett's not a bad shout. We like to play that short ball. He can carry us over the line. Can Kane? I think 12 last season. Chris, I'll come to you first. Who picks up the top try scorer for the Reds this year?
Yeah, if you read James O'Brien's interview with Ryan Hall in the Old Daily Mail that they've done today,
not
Ryan
ready to retire.
Pardon?
Not ready to retire?
Yeah, not ready to retire and targeting a World Cup spot. So you've got to think he's going to be chomping at the bit to get on the try line. I think he's also chasing Danny Magg's try scoring record as well. So he's got a few targets on his horizon. I don't think you can look further than Ryan Hall, can you? It's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic between 𝐿ynett, SKD, and Hall goes this season, because in a way teams have seen it now. But obviously with that, you've still got to play against it. So, but I'm going Ryan Hall for top try scorer.
Mark, what was your opinion, mate? Who's crossing the whitewash more times than anyone?
I don't think you can look any further than Ryan. It's a bit boring answer, but
yeah,
we chip it down that side a lot, don't we? So 𝐿ynett and obviously Ollie will get hopefully 25 tries basically. Then we won't be far away, will we?
Let's hope so. Craig, say someone different for the love of God, please.
Well, I was going to say it's a bit obvious because last year we went down left hand side, but I think Sam Wood it's a good option this year. I think there's going to be a lot of kicks his way. Obviously, towards 𝐂𝐾𝐅𝐼𝐤𝐵 and Wood. I might go for Wood.
Yeah. Mike, is Albert Vete scoring 15+ crash balls?
I tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised. If you look at the way that he scored some of them tries towards the back end of the season, I would not be surprised. Vete, I'm going to go for Vete for a forward player being our top try scorer, but I'll throw a little bit of a curveball, but I'm going to go with Mikey Lewis. I think if he gets some more game time, the way that he runs that line and creative plays that he's got in his locker, yeah, he has the opportunity to cross that whitewash a lot more times than he has done. And he did, I think he won't far off a try a game on average last year. So, let's see what he can finish up with this year.
Yeah, I think Matty Parcell.
Joe, I suppose I was going to say, Joe, the only caveat to Ryan Hall being top try scorer is if we're going to see a bit of a more balanced approach from Rovers, a better right edge, are we going to be shifting the ball out a bit more to that right edge, which means that just naturally Ryan Hall receives less of the ball, because we won't be so reliant on that side, hopefully.
Yeah, I imagine so. I think every single person said here, a lot of the teams and coaches now we're going to play now, and we've got to provide something different. We've got to stick to how we play, because you look at our offload game, first 20 minutes of the Huddersfield friend was absolutely outstanding. But we've got to throw something different in the mix now, and I'm thinking that right-hand side's got to be a lot better. It can be a lot more steadier if 𝐂𝐾, Sam Wood and Dean Hadley, if he's on the right-hand side, or Staunton or Minchella, whoever's playing second row with George King as the prop. Hopefully they can cement a really good right-hand side with Lewis orchestrating it all, because Abel will obviously be back on the left. But yeah, I think it will be more balanced. We've got a lot of try scorers in our ranks, in our forwards as well, because you've got Parcell, Vete, Sims crashes over a few times, so does 𝐂𝐻𝐿ynett and stuff as well. But whatever happens, let's just hope, like Mark said, one of them gets 25 and we won't be far off. But so lads, it's been great so far. I mean, we're going to finish with going through all the round ones. Chris, before we came on the show, I actually spoke about maybe doing our tipping league with these guys as well, because I think if it was just me and you, we did forget, didn't we? And it does get a bit boring if it's just the two of us. But if
whoa. We didn't forget, Joe. You forgot to write down the fucking scores.
I got it right every week, so I didn't want to embarrass you. It was a forfeit. It was a forfeit, and I didn't want you to have to suffer, So this year we're doing our tipping league. We're doing edits. We'll upload it with us, with the three lads as well, and maybe Luke, because obviously we're missing Luke Flanagan tonight. He had family commitments. He couldn't come on, but he'll be involved with a podcast, no doubt, later in 2022. So we will start. We'll go through the games before we wrap up the podcast. The first game on Thursday. Tomorrow night, obviously we're recording this on Wednesday the 9th on Sky Sports sports mix is a repeat of the grand final last year. It is St Helens against the Catalan Dragons. Chris, I can't see far past these two finishing first and second and being in either the Challenge Cup final or the grand final, and one of them winning the League Leaders' Shield. It'll be interesting to see the likes of Mitchell Pearce, Tyrone May, Dylan Napper, alongside the likes of Tompkins and Drinkwater and Busquets, all the usual Catalans players. I'm going to say St Helens, in my opinion, just because it's at Totally Wicked Stadium.
Yeah, everything's just in St Helens' favour, isn't it? And you look at the squad they've assembled. You know, they already had a strong squad last season. They was able to, pass on 𝐿𝐴𝐾 and they're just bringing another world-class star, don't they, to replace the players that depart. So I can't see anything other than a St Helens victory.
Mike, who's winning the first game of 2022?
I'm going to go for Catalans to get
nice. I'm writing this down for our tipping league, so if you look like I'm on my phone ignoring you, I'm not. Go on, Mike.
Yeah. That's it again, Mike? He's still me thunder again, Mike. Go on.
Why go on, Mark? Why are Catalans winning then if you're going for Le Catalan?
No, let Mike talk. No problem. No, I just agree with him. Obviously, Catalans signed a lot of big players as well. You know what I mean? I think obviously must have some salary cap there as well. So I'm with Mike. I think that losing 𝐿𝐴𝐾 with our advantage, obviously, I think he'll be a massive loss for St Helens. And as much as they mention Wellesby 74 times every time he's on telly, he's a very good young player, but he's no 𝐿𝐴𝐾 in my opinion. So that's why I'd go for Catalans. Yeah. Go on, Mike.
Go on, Mike. You go. Why are Catalans winning? Sorry, buddy.
Sorry, it's Mark's turn to steal my thunder now because I was going to talk about Jack Wellesby as well. But man's slightly a different reason because when Saints had 𝐾, they had Wellesby as their backup, and Wellesby could play centre, fullback. He even played on the wing. Now, because they've lost 𝐾, Wellesby's going to go in and he's going to play fullback all the time. But that's going to potentially take him out of some of the more attacking, threatening positions where he might find himself in centre or on the wing. So by not having him as that utility player could actually be the knock-on effect of, the Saints fans are really excited about him being their fullback, but it's the knock-on effect of who have they got in who's going to replace that utility value.
Yeah, definitely. I think, Craig, before we finish with you, mate, for the first game, is they've got the likes of Wellesby, Lewis Dodd, Lomax and Roby. Two of them are really inexperienced, a lot of quality and a lot of potential, but they've got a lot of pressure on them. And then you've got James Roby, who's probably said it's going to be his last year. So he's got a point to prove, but it could be just maybe 1 year too late. They've still got a lot of quality. They've made a lot of changes, but I still think the two really good sides. Who gets the 2 points on Thursday night?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've got these two in the grand final at the end. But I think I'm going to go for Catalan. I think I hate to say it, but he's quality and he's Sam Tompkins. I think he'll just be the difference on the night. I think his experience, especially over Jack Wellesby, he's brilliant. But I think Sam Tompkins, he's going to win him the game.
Yeah. Probably one of my favourite players of all time. Absolutely love him as much as he's a knob and he's annoying. What a great player he is. So we move on to the Friday night games. We will obviously start with the one that doesn't involve us. So that is Castleford and Salford, as it is at the Jungle. New coaches, Paul Rowley and Lee Radford, taking charge for the first time. A lot of transfers in and out at Wealdon Road and the AJ Bell. Chris, it could be a debut for George Lawler as well. Obviously, another podcast episode that you listen to, guys, former players, Adam Quinlan and George. We did one a few weeks ago. I think because it's such a big occasion, I think they will start with a bang, Castleford. It could be 20, 30 points. I'm going to say it's quite lopsided, but the Tigers pick up the 2 points and Radders gets off to a winning start.
Yeah, I think, do you know what? I expect Castleford to be all right next season. I really do. I think Lee Radford will get them, pretty solid in defence, and you won't see expansive rugby league, but I think you'll see effective rugby league. And for me, I think Salford are going to be down there as competing with Toulouse for that bottom spot. So I can't see anything other than a Cas victory.
Yeah, I think, Mike, how they play, don't you, Radders? He'll be tough down the middle, big on defence. Do you think he'll improve them this year, or do you think Darryl Powell was still the man to take them forward?
No, I think they've got done a good bit of business getting Lee Radford in there. I think he's somebody that could potentially stabilise them a little bit and then look to progress. They'll be looking at the Challenge Cup as well. We know Radford's history in that competition, but I'm down with Cas winning on Friday night as well.
Mark.
It don't matter. I've been called far worse, Joe. Casbar 10.
Casbar 10, very bold. Put a punt on it. Craig wins at Wealdon Road on
Yeah.
Friday night, buddy.
Casbar 14, I think.
Yeah. So everyone in favour of the Yorkshire side, and the most important game of the weekend, of course. I'm hoping we're all going to say the same. I got told off by Chris a few times last year for going against Rovers, but it always proved me wrong, and we picked up the 2 points, which is the most important. But for me, Chris, biggest game of the weekend. Can't wait to get back in Craven Park. Rovers obviously starting off where they left off in 2021. 2 points to the red and whites, not the cherry and whites.
Yeah, do you know what? I reckon it's going to be a real humdinger. I think it's going to be 0.7 and flowing. I think it'll be. I can't see one side really dominating too much where they rack up, big points on the scoreboard. So I can see it coming down to a drop goal or a penalty kick. So, but I'm gonna go for an Abdul 2-pointer to win us the game.
Oh, sounds like a classic, Mike. Do you agree? Rovers winning on Friday?
Yes, yeah. I'm going for Rovers as well. I think it'll be a close game. It's amazing how we don't seem to fear Wigan like we have in the past. I think they've got some quality individuals. They're in a transition at the moment. How are they going to react? I think the way that we finished last season, the way that we've added some really good bits of business in. Sam Wood to start for me on Friday night. Sam
Wood, man of the match. Mark, who's picking up the 2 points?
I think a very, very tight win for Rovers, but I just think they'll be a different animal. I know Sean Wayne's not the coach as such, but he's in the building. And I just think they'll be back to being grubs again, do you know what I mean? And horrible sort of things, hard to play against. So Rovers bar 1.
Oh, Rovers bar 1. Craig, is it going to be a close one like the lads think, or are you going totally different?
No, I'm going Rovers 24-22. And I think Matt Parcell's going to get the first and the last try. That's what I'm going.
There's a better result. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, if anyone's a betting man listening in, put us on, and then when you lose your 5-10 quid at the weekend, you know to message. Definitely not me, it's Craig. I'll put your Twitter name out, Craig, so you can transfer them the money back. If we go on to Saturday, obviously 2 games on the telly. The first one's at 12:30, Channel 4, first ever Super League match on Freeview TV, and it is Leeds Rhinos and Warrington Wolves at Emerald Headingley. Chris, this could be a really good game. I'm looking forward to watching it on Channel 4 as well. It's great for the sport, like we've already mentioned. I'm going to go an away victory. I'm going to say Warrington. First game with Darryl Powell in charge. He's going to take 2 points off Leeds, his former club that he coached, obviously, before Castleford. But this could be maybe the game of the weekend. It's going to be a really good transition, obviously, from Leeds. They've got Caesar and Austin, who won't be playing. We know he's suspended. But some really good signings from Leeds. I'm looking forward to seeing how they go. And it should be an interesting account in West Yorkshire.
Yeah, it's going to be an intriguing battle, isn't it? Because it's two clubs who want to go better than what they did last season, and Leeds obviously don't want to be anywhere near the bottom. That I think they're not even looking at playoffs. I think they're going that next level. I think they're aspiring for that. So it's always probably a good test to play one of the rivals. Early on in the season, Warrington. We saw what we did to them. They look pretty beat up, which was. Obviously, if you're a Wire fan, you'll be disappointed. But I think it's going to be a really tight game. But I just think I'm going to go for Leeds because I think Warrington aren't going to start off that well. And I think Darryl Powell might come under a bit of pressure early on.
Mike, you look like you're wearing a Warrington shirt from all, don't you, if you cross your badge off like a few years back?
You could argue that it could be Leeds as well. But
yeah.
I think I'm going to go with Leeds. Similar to the reasoning for Chris as well. I just think that the way that they've built the squad throughout the winter does lead them into a really good position heading into this season. They're clearly a club with ambition. Obviously, they've redeveloped the stadium, and I just think that Leeds will have just a little bit too much for Warrington on Saturday.
Mark, Rhinos or the Wolves?
Rhinos for me.
Rhinos. Craig, are you going to make it 4v1, or are you sticking up for me?
Sorry, I'm going Rhinos as well.
No worries. Chris needs all the friends and support he gets anyhow. So I'll prove, and like I said, when Warrington pick up the 2 points, I'll be the one smiling. But on the 7 o'clock, obviously it'll be 8 o'clock French time. Toulouse Olympique. Bit of controversy in the off season with Jonathan Ford, star man, stepping down from the club after 11 years due to not getting the COVID vaccine. And we know the rules for the French government at this moment. They're taking on Ian Watson's Huddersfield, the team who we played last week and we'll play next week. Chris, I think we were so excited to see Toulouse maybe put up a bit of a fight more than Lee and more than other Super League promotion teams. But I just think with him leaving, they haven't signed massively big. They've got Chris Hankinson, haven't they? Matty Russell. They've signed a forward from Lesignan, but not much on the transfer market for the South France team. And we played them 3 times this year, and that could be definitely something to look at as a 6-pointer for Kingston Rovers. I think they're going to go down. I think they're going to struggle. They'll be tough to beat, but I do think Huddersfield will pick up the 2 points and spoil the party in for Toulouse.
Yeah, I think there's all types of news coming out with Toulouse at the moment, because is it Corella who might actually now be featuring for Toulouse?
Yeah.
Even though he's apparently been released, but I think for me they've not recruited smart enough. I think they're relying on being at home and probably picking off a few teams with home form and pretty much writing off what they do away from Toulouse. If you're relying on Mitch Garbutt and Junior Vaivai, no disrespect, although it is pretty disrespectful, probably what I'm saying. I think you are going to struggle relying on them players. So I can't see anything other than a Toulouse defeat.
Yeah, no, Mike, I was going to say, literally took the words out of my mouth, but you've got people like Harrison Hansen as well, who've been about around the block, and yeah, they've got that experience, but you look at comparing to probably York in the Championship, who have got Washbrook, Kermond, these older names, as good as it is for experience, they're just lacking that skill in Super League Toulouse. I think going week in, week out, they're not playing Barrow at home and then playing Dewsbury. They're going to be Rovers, Wigan, Saints every week, and I do think it could be a long old season for the second French team in Super League.
Yeah, I can't believe that we've got to the third person and nobody else has said this, but I'm going to go for Toulouse. I feel like that was a given.
How do I remove people from this?
I feel like when with any team that gets promoted from the Championship, you're almost back against it before you even got promoted. You're getting promoted that late on into the year. As we know, the agents can contact players from May time. Well, if you don't know you're going to be in the Super League, how can you start offering Super League contracts out to players? We spoke about it from a Rovers perspective. We've been fighting relegation battles, which has meant we've missed out on quality players. Look at last year, no relegation battle. Lachlan Coote signs in June, July time. It's incredible what that league position can do for you after that sort of period of time into the season. So unfortunately, I just feel they're battling against it too much. Whichever team comes up, I'll be saying the exact same thing about them. You look back now through from 2017 when Rovers got promoted, every newly promoted team has gone down, apart from Rovers in 2017 when we came up, didn't we? So it's so hard to do. We committed to the Championship with a Super League budget. We stayed full time. We almost had a Super League squad in that Championship, and unfortunately, I don't see any other team in that Championship that have got the ability to do that at this moment in time.
No, Mark, are we doing a few trips to the south of France this year?
We're actually, I missed the Catalan game. We're in Benalmadena with the lads.
It's in March, isn't it? Is it like March the 15th?
Yeah, I think it's March the 19th. We're going the 18th. So we'll be watching it in Willow's Bar in Benalmadena, I think. Getting tangled in there, but I don't know. Probably, hopefully, but don't tell the missus, will you yet? Do you know what I mean? She's upstairs, so don't speak to her.
I was going to say I hope she's not listening, but she probably don't want to hear your voice again if you've had an hour and 22 apart.
100%. She doesn't listen to me anyway, mate. So don't worry about it. Yeah. But yeah, I think we've obviously got players like Mitch Garbutt. We had at Rovers who, been a very good player, but you just can't get him out of the pitch, can you? Do you know what I mean? With his chocolate knees. So I think that we'll give it a go. Obviously this weekend, I think maybe it'll be a bit of a tight game against Huddersfield, but I think I agree with you all that I think they'll be doomed. I think early doors. But I will go for a Toulouse win by 5. Yeah.
Oh, you're going Toulouse. Nice.
Yeah.
Craig?
I'm actually going Huddersfield. I think they'll do okay this year. I do like Ian Watson as a coach. The way he speaks about the game. He's brought his own players in this year. So I think the pressure is on him. But I think they'll be pushing for a playoff spot. So, I'm going to go Huddersfield the opening weekend.
Nice. Well, at least we have different opinions. That's why we got you on the show. And to wrap up round one on Sunday, the 13th of Feb at 3 o'clock, it is Wakefield Trinity against our neighbours Hull FC. I think it could be a clean sweep for this. I'd be very surprised if anyone chose them lot. But Chris, I think as much as, we're a Rovers podcast and we do have a laugh and stuff, I honestly do think they're going to struggle this year. And I've made me feelings quite clear why I do think they will. But for me, I think Wakefield are really going to struggle under Willie poaching, but I can just see him getting off to a good start. I think at the Rapids Listers or Bellevue, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is nowadays, it's a tough place to go. We saw that last year. It's a boggy pitch. It plays to their strengths with Tom Johnson on the wings and Reece Lynn, and they play at home a lot better than they do away at Wakefield. And I'm going to say the West Yorkshire team pick up the 2 points against the, well, whatever you want to call them.
I'll go for Wakefield.
Wakey, yeah. Mike, less said about them, the better. Who wins, Wakey or them?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Wakey. Just I think that the home form is something that they've sort of benefited from for the last sort of maybe five or 10 years, and yeah, I think they'll just sneak it.
Wakey for me,
Mark.
Yeah, Wakey for me, lads. Yeah.
Craig finishes off.
Yeah, it'll be a poor game, but I think Wakey.
Yeah, definitely. But no, lads, that's probably all we've got time for. But I'll tell you what, it's been great to do one of these, Chrisanity, because it's got me in the mood for Friday. It's great to have different voices, different opinions. It's been a great episode, a lot of interaction. But on a serious note, Rovers are back on Friday, Chris. How good does that sound? And as much as we love doing the Heritage Cast, we're back to doing our weekly podcast now, getting more people involved and a bit of a new direction for the podcast in it. First year with proper sponsors, doing it all on StreamYard now. So hopefully a positive year on the pitch, but for me and you as well, doing the podcast.
Yeah, and a reminder to everybody who's watching this, if you're watching it on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're on Facebook, give us a thumbs up. And if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you subscribe to whatever podcast provider. And also follow the newsletter, sign up to that, because as soon as a podcast goes out, as soon as we've got something to announce, we'll put it out in the newsletter. So numbers are good, mate. We're really happy. I'm buzzing for the new season. It's great that Mike, Mark and Craig have been able to join us, and hopefully you're going to come on board and get involved with the podcast going forward, because like we said at the very start, we want fans on here talking about 𝐿 Kingston Rovers. And great to see Keith Pollard. Is he going to be with you on Friday, Mike?
Yeah, he will. And while we're here, I'm going to give him a little cheap plug, because Keith will be there with copies of his book. He's got Red and White Phoenix, and he's also got his non-fiction book that he's been writing as well. So, pop down to see us, and he'll be selling some books on there. He does donate his money to charity as well. So I think it's going to Hull for Heroes, and I think he might be doing for Zook as well on this one. So yeah, come give Keith a shout.
Yeah, and just another little plug. We spoke to Keith a few months back about his new book. So if you head over to our YouTube channel, you can hear and watch our interview with Keith about his book. So, and there's lots of other content on there. So we're trying to put more content on the YouTube page. But like I said, chaps, thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll get you back on during the season.
Yeah,
thanks for the invite.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, guys. So this has obviously been the Red Robin podcast with me, Appleyard, Chris Johnson, Mike Carter, Mark Lever, and Craig Escrett. We are sponsored by 360 Chartered Accountants and Budget Tyres Auto Centre. And for you guys listening, I'll be doing a bit of a pre-match intro at the ground. We can use StreamYard on our phones now, so I'll be going live on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter as well. So once the team news is out, I'll be doing a bit of a match day blog as well. So we'll go into that with more detail, but I'll be trialling it at round one against Wigan. So guys, been great to speak to you. Bring on Friday, bring on Super League, up the Robins. Chris, I will see you very soon. And lads, thank you for coming on the show.
Cheers, lads.
Thank you very much.